Hey everybody, my name is Matthew Simbanis. I'm a certified public accountant. My firm is based in Long Island, New York, and in today's video we are going to discuss inflation and if the Federal Reserve is basically effective at all, and if they've done their job, if they've averaged 2% inflation, and other things along the lines of that nature. So if you're into economics, finance, investing, making money, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I was going through my phone the other day, and I found a gem, and I made notes on that gem. And that gem, not to be redundant and use the word gem 4 times or 3 times in a row, was a receipt from Panera from November 2016. And I don't think this actually does justice to the inflation that we've experienced, but it at least puts a true picture on it. And I've read online about how there's other, blogs out there that have people who have receipts from 2019, 2020 compared to 23 and 24, which also shows it. But I know that this is personally from my own experience based on my own credit card right here. Not that you can read that, and based with my chicken scratch notes, which is basically some calculations. So November 3rd, 2016 at 12:50 p.m. I placed an order for you pick 2. I got a half Greek salad. I got 1 cup of broccoli cheddar soup, 1 free French baguette, which is always great, and a medium soda. So the Greek salad back then was $3.99, and that is now $6.19. So what does that mean? Well, we're talking the end of 2016, so let's call it 2017. We're in 2024, so-called a 7-year period, and that's a 55% increase, which is 8% inflation per year, and the Federal Reserve's target is 2%. 1 cup broccoli cheddar soup in 2016, or 2017, if you want to round it up, $3.99. Now it's $5.99, $2 more, a 50% increase, which averages 7% average inflation per year. And then we have the medium soda. So they don't make medium soda anymore, or let me rephrase that, they don't have medium sodas anymore at Panera. So they have a regular, which was $3.39, and they have a large for $3.89. So I guess the fair comparison would be the regular for $3.39, and that is up. Back then it was $2.39, and now it's $3.39, so that's a 42% increase, and that means it's 6% inflation annually. Do you think that I want to pay $3.99 for a Greek salad, or do I want to pay $6.19? Do I want to spend $4 on a broccoli cheddar soup, or do I want to spend $6 on a broccoli cheddar soup? I want to pay less, right? The less I pay, the better, because the more money I get to keep. So why in the world would the government make it their goal to have 2% inflation every year? Let that sit with you. I mean, that's how backwards our country is. That's how backwards the government's policies are. And that's, supply and demand, basic law of economics, basic law of Austrian economics, basic law of common sense, and that government has no business being in our economic affairs. And for a multitude of reasons, but this is clearly a fine example of, number one, we're supposed to only have 2% inflation. We clearly have at least 7%, 8% inflation, and that's just from food. I have receipts from 2020 where I did a build out on my house, before COVID hit 2020, and it was $30 for a bag of insulation, and now that's $80 for a bag of insulation. I mean, that's way more than 8% inflation per year. I mean, the price of wood went through the roof. The price of everything went through the roof, 200-300%, not 8-9%. So food is actually at the low end of it, in my opinion. And what else has gone up a lot? Well, from 21 to April of 24, January 21, there's been a 45% increase in auto leasing, a 45% increase in truck leasing. Food produced and consumed on farms went up 40%. Foreign travel in the United States has gone up 27%. The list goes on and on of just stuff that went up through the roof. And another good article that I was going to do a video on last week. Happy belated Memorial Day, by the way, and was an article from the New York Post. Your Memorial Day barbecue will be 10% more than it was last year thanks to inflation. And what is that? The inflation is the printing of the money supply. So the government prints money, credit card companies, banks issue debt to consumers, and it goes through the roof. So is the Federal Reserve winning against inflation? No. Are they going to make it better? No. Are interest rates too low or too high? Right now, they're too low. And I know that's going to sound counterintuitive, but it's actually not. If we want to have 2% inflation, which we don't, we want to have deflation, right? Because as I just pointed out, you want to pay less, not more. So we actually need deflation to get to targeted 2% inflation, which is never going to happen. And not only that, inflation is going to continue to be worse than 2% inflation per year. Another fine case in point from CNBC, auto insurance rates are jumping the most since the 1970s, but there could be relief soon. Motor vehicle insurance cost was up 22.6% from a year ago, the largest annual increase since 1979. In the beginning of this year, Geico tried raising my rates by 40% or 50%, whatever the number was. It was like $210 a month, and they wanted to raise it to $250 a month. And I was apoplectic, especially when I started out with them 2 years ago. It was only $150 per month. And luckily, I found another. I actually did a whole video on it. I was just, can I afford it? Yes. It was just the principle. Like, how much am I going to continue to get ripped off and robbed from every angle? And, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little of this, a little of that, and it adds up to be a lot. And listen, my general go-to solution is, thankfully I'm self-employed. My firm's been growing for every year since I've been in business, including this year. And so I just usually put my head down and I say, how do I make more? But again, the solution is not always how do I make more? It's how do I make more and how do I cut my costs down? And, I found somebody to go back to the $130 per month for insurance. I don't drive a whole lot of miles every year. I don't even know what Geico was offering other than just being a pure ripoff. So, and then to go a step further, according to the CNBC article, and this is how incompetent CNBC is, or whoever wrote this, by Jeff Cox, who I would not follow, there could be relief soon. So, recent trends do not mean that your premium will fall, but will not rise as fast. So, again, we want deflation. Do I want to spend $130 a month in car insurance, or do I want to spend $250 a month of car insurance? Anyway, list goes on. Federal Reserve minutes indicate worries over lack of progress on inflation. I've been saying that for over a year now. Inflation is only going to get worse. Buy gold, buy silver, buy gold and silver stocks at this point. They're still grossly undervalued in comparison to gold and silver, which the actual commodities have gone up, not substantially, but a good amount, especially on a percentage basis. Excuse me. But basically, the Federal Reserve can't lower rates. And if they do, all it's going to do is benefit people who are invested in the stock market, but it's going to raise prices more. Because the cheaper money is, the more demand there is, and the Federal Reserve keeps on printing it, so there's more and more supply, and more supply chasing the same amount of goods equals higher costs. Good example that I got from Peter Schiff is, instead of sending out $1,400 checks to everybody in America, or $1,600 or $2,800, whatever they were for the stimulus checks when COVID hit, imagine if they'd sent out $500,000 checks or $1 million checks. Then what would have happened is the cost of houses would have gone through the roof. The cost of Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Porsches would have gone through the roof because everybody would have been out buying that instead of small goods. Inflation outlook rises, fueled by expected increases for housing costs, New York Fed survey shows. So, long story short is inflation is going to get worse. It's not going down. The cost of living keeps on going up. The other issue is there's more and more government involvement, especially in blue states or Democratic states, which makes matters that much worse as well. And then we have other issues where, inflation, which we want deflation, is squeezing everybody. Food is now an investment. Here's why inflation isn't going away anytime soon. Another great article from Zero Hedge. Out of control inflation. It now takes at least $178,000 for a family of four to live comfortably in the U.S., depending on the state that you're in. What else is contributing to inflation? The government deficit, right? So Jerome Powell needs to put the government in check and say, hey, I'm going to stop financing all this stupid stuff that we're doing because we have not enough tax revenues coming in and too many expenditures, right? So the way the government works is basically they say, okay, fine, we have, we'll use small numbers. We have $1 million that we want to spend. We have $500,000 in income that we want to spend. Where do we borrow the other $500,000? Imagine running your household that way. You have, $100,000 of income. You want to spend $200,000. But you say to yourself, hey, how do I borrow the other 100? It's $100,000, and that's not fiscally sustainable. And this is all common sense stuff that is just mind blowing. That there's only a few politicians out there that actually understand that. U.S. spent more than double what it collected in February as 2024 deficit is second highest ever and debt explodes. I haven't even looked at the national debt for a while, not even included unfunded liabilities. What else is contributing? Student loan debt relief, right? We have $16 or $17 trillion worth of student debt, and Biden, cancels another $7.7 billion for students for 160,000 borrowers. So basically now we have 160,000 people. Divide that by, call it 52 states on average. That's a lot of people in a few states who are now benefiting, and now instead of paying back that debt, which is what they should have been doing and is the right thing, they turn around and they now have that money to go buy other goods, which drives up the cost of those goods. And then we have more inflation that way. And basically, student loan forgiveness is robbing Peter to pay Paul. I'm not going to even get into the moral or implications of what I think is right or wrong, especially not in this video. And then you have people struggling at every level, right? So basically, the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell should be fired. I'm putting that on record. He should have been fired a long time ago. Janet Yellen should have been fired. Frankly, neither of these people should have ever been hired. Ben Bernanke was absolutely terrible. And it's just a culmination of just like since, at least in my memory, because I'm young enough or old enough, really remembering from 2000 forward, how every president that we've had has been progressively worse. Bush was bad. Obama was worse. Especially when we're talking about fiscal matters. Trump ran up the deficit more than Obama. And you could blame it on COVID, but he didn't have to, right? Just because something is easy doesn't make it right. And Biden's going to run up the deficit more than Trump. And so what does that deficit mean? Well, easy money today, hard lives tomorrow, right? What's that saying? Do the hard things now to make life easy later, or work hard and have an easy life, or don't take it easy and have a hard life, So anyways, the deficits gets worse and worse. Case in point, Michael Burry from The Big Short, the movie, The Famous Investor, and also John Paulson and quite a few other investors are piling into gold and silver stocks. They anticipated going up. I anticipated going up. I actually copied Peter Schiff. Half of my portfolio is in gold and silver stocks, and the other half is in foreign stocks or high growth stocks. And that's what I plan on continuing to do. If you found this helpful, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I try to reply to every comment. And if you'd like me to do a video on anything in particular, just let me know and I'd be happy to oblige. So have a great rest of the day. Hope you have a great weekend, and thank you again for watching.